Hello to you all, streaming live from Maastricht. Dit is RHTVLive. Hallo allemaal, daar zijn we er weer. RHTVLive. Ja. En er gebeurt weer veel in de wereld. Ik heb het op Facebook gepost. Erg belangrijk dat we dit weten hier. Wat is er gebeurd? Darja Dugina is dus een Russische politici en die is dood. Ja, en dat doet me een beetje denken aan de Eerste Wereldoorlog. Hè? Weet je nog, Frans Ferdinand? Ja, kennen we die nog? Nou, vast niet. Hè? Dat gaan we dan even opzoeken. Frans Ferdinand. Zo. Overal. Ja, kijk hier. Archduke Frans Ferdinand. En wat is daar ook weer mee gebeurd, hè? Ja. Assassination of Archduke Frans Ferdinand. Ja. Dus we gaan even kijken naar wat er in Rusland is gebeurd. Al Jazeera is de bron. Thank you, Al Jazeera. En we moeten wel even iets aan de instellingen doen natuurlijk. Anders blijft hij haperen. Ja, dus we're going to take a look at what's happening in Russia at the moment.
Welcome to the news hour. We begin in Russia, where police have launched a murder investigation after the daughter of a pro-Kremlin commentator was killed in a car bomb explosion near Moscow. Unverified social media footage showed Daria Dugina's father Alexander at the scene shortly after the bombing. Both have supported Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Well, Alexander Dugin is a Russian philosopher, political analyst and strategist. He was the chief editor at the pro-Kremlin Tsargrad TV station. Dugin was reportedly helped or shaped Vladimir Putin's expansionist foreign policies and has been called often Putin's brain. Now, he was involved in the Russian president's initiative for the annexation of Crimea and considered the invasion of Ukraine inevitable. Dugin has previously called for the eradication of Ukrainian identity. Well, Samuel Romani is an Associate Fellow at the Royal United Services Institute and joins me now from Oxford in England. Good to have you with us on the programme, sir. I mean, can we make the assumption that the target might have been Alexander Dugin rather than his daughter?
I think it's very likely that the target was Alexander Dugin rather than his daughter. I think that even though Daria Dugina has espoused very similar views to her father, particularly accusing the West of committing Nazism, calling for the annexation of all of Ukraine with the exception of Lviv, and the self-cleansing of Russian society, and her influence is drastically less than her father's.
Well, I mean, who would be the likely suspects? Because both the Kremlin and Ukraine are saying it's not them. But behind the scenes, was Alexander Dugin universally popular within Russia and specifically within the Kremlin?
So Alexander Dugin's actual influence over Russian policy has been grossly overstated. I reject the claims that he is Putin's Rasputin or Putin's brain, which is often the title that's been given him to the Western media. In fact, he never really held an official title within Russia, and his closest partners within the Kremlin were people like Sergei Glaziev, who were dismissed from the Kremlin in 2019. He isn't that in touch with the current establishment, least of all Putin. So I don't think it's really a strike at a major Russian foreign policy decision maker. Of course, the Russian Foreign Ministry is blaming Ukraine for this, saying that it's part of a pattern of Ukrainian terrorist activity, which extends to the attacks on Crimea, chemical terrorism, and now nuclear terrorism. And, of course, Zelensky's team is saying that Ukraine is not a terrorist state and doesn't commit crimes like this. So both sides are denying it, but I think it's very unlikely that this was done to derail or disrupt Russian policy in any way.
So you say that he doesn't have that much influence in Russia, but he was more assertive in terms of trying to make the campaign for Ukraine more on a war footing compared to the words that we've heard from the Kremlin and from Putin talking about a special military operation. Their themes seem to diverge to a certain extent. What are we to read into that?
So Dugin has always been, to some degree, a hardline nationalist critic of Russian foreign policy, basically wanting to go much further than Putin is willing to go. In 2008, he wanted Russia not to stop at South Ossetia when they invaded Georgia, but actually go all the way to Tbilisi, overthrow Saakashvili, and then annex Crimea. In 2014, he wanted the Russians to officially declare war on Ukraine and annex most of the eastern part of the country. Now he's calling for a general mobilization, a draft, conscription, and the complete movement until the historic destiny of Moscow and Kiev being united together is achieved. So he's always been pushing for more hardline views than the Kremlin has called for, so that's nothing new.
There's no doubt that they have a line of communication, both Dugin and Putin, but this killing will rattle the Kremlin in some shape or form, won't it?
Well, it will rattle the Kremlin if it was done by an external saboteur, but it won't rattle the Kremlin so much if this was some kind of an internal power struggle within the Russian security services between people who are trying to quash intellectuals like Dugin, who might fan the flames for a faster end to the war, a more efficient end to the war, or even support for the draft, which is something that the Russians don't want to do. They want to get as many volunteers as possible. They're even clearing people out of prisons, but they don't want to do conscription. So if it's something internal, it won't necessarily rattle the Kremlin, but if it proves to be something external, like the foreign ministry is claiming, or Ukrainian related, then yes, it certainly would.
Samuel Romani joining us there from Oxford. Thank you so much.
So this guy says that Alexander doesn't have much influence in Moscow. I wouldn't know. Who knows? Ja, het is toch wel heel erg vreemd dat, dat de Russische politica gewoon omkomt. Ja. Maar ja, we zullen zien. Oorlog is a dirty game. War is a dirty game. So who knows where this will go to? You know, and the tensions in Ukraine were dissipating. There was a ceasefire for a while, but people are still fighting. Yep. So, and a lot of people are, suffering from the fighting. Now let's see what's happening in Kenya, right? We know there was an election, and people had said there is election fraud, even murder. So let's take a look at what's happening in Kenya. And for the people who don't know where Kenya is, we're going to look it up. So it's in Africa. There you go. Right next to Somalia. And we got news on that too, Somalia. So let's see what's happening in Kenya.
These mourners in eastern Kenya are preparing to bury their loved one. Daniel Musyoka was an electoral official who was in charge of a contentious tallying center in Nairobi. He disappeared 2 days after tallying began. His body was found in another town. Police say he was tortured. His family believes he was targeted for political reasons.
For sure, the death is because of politics. We have seen so many issues about political deaths. People get lost mysteriously. And you hear that we are doing investigation. This time around, I don't know. For the past times, we have seen that justice has not been found.
Neighbors here are still in shock. The relatives of Musyoka say they have many questions for the authorities. They want to know why he was killed and they want justice. In northeastern Kenya, another election official was shot when armed men attacked his tallying center. Doctors could not save Mohammed Ahmed's leg. He blamed police for shooting him.
An officer came from nowhere, shot at me, and left me crying for help.
At the National Tallying Center, some people tried to stop the electoral chief Wafula Chebukati from declaring presidential results.
And let me thank
President-elect William Ruto won the election, but that has been disputed by former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, who came second. Chebukati says his employees continue to face threats. Human rights groups say they are worried.
The IBC, just the way it prepares for other processes of elections. But from where I sit, I think it needs to consider a inbuilt protection mechanisms for its officials. Because what we understand right now, like now, the returning officers who are under threat, they feel completely isolated and also exposed.
The election may be over for some people, but for Musyoka and Ahmed families, they say their trauma will take a long while to heal. Catherine Soy, Al Jazeera, Machakos County.
So yet another political assassination, right? Yep. Politics is a very dirty game. So we were also going to talk about Somalia, the neighboring country, and what happened in Somalia. Well, there was a hotel, and you had people with guns who took people hostage, and 2 car bombs exploded in front of the hotel, and then they took the hotel over in the panic. Ja, dus hotel in Somalië, 2 autobommen die afgingen en een groep paramilitairen die dus de hotel in handen hadden. Ja, dus en politie en hun apparaten die nog enigszins functioneren, want Somalië is eigenlijk, ja, je moet zo'n beetje zien dat het allemaal gebieden zijn die in handen zijn van iemand met wapens. Ja. En bij hun hoofdstad, daar zo dan, dat is allemaal beschermd. Hè? Daar heb je politie en noem het op. Dus, maar in de rest van het land, totale chaos. Snap je? Het zijn allemaal groeperingen die tegen elkaar vechten om een stukje grond en om macht te hebben. Ja. Dus, maar we gaan even kijken naar wat er in Somalië is gebeurd. Mogadishu Hotel, een siege. Al-Shabaab, dat is een organisatie die een hotel heeft overgenomen. En we gaan even kijken.
It took security forces 30 hours to end the siege of the Hyatt Hotel in Mogadishu. A special police task force deployed to the Somali capital killed the attackers and freed the hostages.
The security operation that took place in the Hyatt Hotel ended at midnight. During the operation, security forces focused on measures to ensure the safety of citizens who were stuck in the hotel. More than 100 people, including women and children, were rescued.
The attack began on Friday night when Al-Shabaab gunmen detonated 2 car bombs at the entrance of the hotel before storming it. Dozens of people were trapped in the building.
Just minutes before the blast, 2 of my friends told me they would be leaving, but seconds later they were both killed. People fled in confusion. They were all running towards places they thought would be safe. The hotel began to fill with smoke and flames. I saw one of the hotel guards bleeding and another man wounded.
The Hyatt is popular among businessmen, government personnel and politicians. This is the first attack Al-Shabaab has carried out in Mogadishu since Hassan Sheikh Mohammed was elected president for a second time in May. Despite a years-long offensive by the government and African Union forces, the siege is a reminder that the armed group still poses a threat to Somali security. Mohammed Wang, Al Jazeera.
Harry Mutasa is following the story for us from Nairobi, a neighbouring Kenya, and joins me now. So, Harry, really, the government say they've recaptured the hotel, the Al-Shabaab fighters are dead, but it still leaves many more questions unanswered for the moment.
Well, people who haven't heard from their loved ones are waiting near the hotel for any kind of news. We've been told that parts of the hotel collapsed, so there's a fear that some people could still be trapped in there. And that's why some people are saying the death toll could rise. Security officials are still combing the area, looking through security footage, looking for evidence. This is a big hotel, popular with politicians and lawmakers, but it seems with this attack, many civilians were targeted. When the new president came into power in May, he promised to tackle insecurity. So questions are being asked, like, how did Al-Shabaab manage to get into the hotel? Why did it take security forces so long to bring things under control, 30 hours? And how is the government going to prevent more attacks from happening? In recent weeks, there have been smaller attacks by Al-Shabaab near the border with Ethiopia, and in those times, Ethiopia has managed to push Al-Shabaab back.
So Ethiopia, let's see where that is. Right over here. Now they have their own problems in Ethiopia.
Concerns are now being raised, of course, is what is being done about the security situation in Somalia. It's a fairly new government. They're still trying to get their things in order. And the concern people are having now is this new president going to be able to rein in Al-Shabaab and stop future attacks in Mogadishu? He said he's willing to speak to Al-Shabaab leaders, but he said the time is not yet right for that now.
Harry Mutasa for us in Nairobi. Thank you, Harry. Ali Warsame is a lecturer at the University of East Africa and a former education minister in Puntland. He says Al-Shabaab's hotel attack was a sophisticated operation and probably involved significant planning.
Mogadishu was recently in a very calm situation. There was no major incident since Zombie in 2017. Everyone was surprised, and I think one of the main contributors of this operation was that the government is in transition, and there is still no clear command for many forces. The coordination was very difficult, and I think the situation was not expected as fast as it has happened.
So imagine, right, moet je eens voorstellen dat je even op vakantie gaat naar Mogadishu, de hoofdstad van Somalië. Ja. En je komt dan in zo'n hotel, 30 uur lang word je onder schot gehouden en zoiets. Je bent ongewapend, je kan niet veel doen. Je moet wachten op de politie, 30 uur. Ja. Nou, heel veel mensen zullen bang zijn. Maar als ik een wapen had, dan had ik zelf ook wel geschoten. Op die lui. Dus zo zie je hoe belangrijk het is om een wapen te hebben. Ja, dan kun je jezelf verdedigen. So it's very important to carry your own gun so you can protect yourself and others. Yep. En ooit hadden we een wapenwet in Nederland. Toen Nederland een republiek was. Bij onze geboorte. Toen wij de Spanjaarden hebben bestreden. Ja, toen hadden we ook een wapenwet. Ja. De Amerikanen, die hebben de Engelsen verdreven. En die keken naar Nederland. Die hadden zoiets van, hé, wacht even, die Nederlanders die hebben wapens. Ja, moeten wij ook hebben. Dus laten we dat verwerken in onze constitutie. Ja. En wat gebeurt er in Nederland? In Nederland heb je dus een machtsstrijd tussen statisten, mensen die dus voor de republiek zijn, en de monarchisten. Ja, interne strijd in Nederland. En op een gegeven moment winnen de monarchisten. We krijgen dan Lodewijk als eerste koning in Nederland. En Lodewijk was niet eens een Nederlander. Nee, die kwam uit Frankrijk. Kennen we de Bataafse Republiek nog? Ja, toen Nederland overgenomen werd. Oh, je gelooft me niet, hè? Nou, oké. Bataafse Republiek. Daar. Hier hebben we de Bataafse Republiek. Dat was eigenlijk een satellietstaat voor Frankrijk. Ja. Dus interne gevecht in Nederland. Zullen we nou een republiek zijn of een monarchie? En op een gegeven moment, de twee belangrijkste republikeinen waren gebroeders de Wit. En die hebben heel wat aanslagen overleefd, totdat ze wel gepakt werden en levend gevild werden en zoiets, echt gruwelijk. Maar goed, een stukje Nederlands geschiedenis, ook belangrijk om te weten. So we were a satellite state under France, the Batavian Republic, and when France was fighting wars in Central and Eastern Europe, even the war in 1812, right, Moscow. There were a lot of Dutch that went along. So we were a satellite state for France. And very, very sad. But this is what happened. This is our history, right? So first, you had the Spanish Empire, right? Which was called the Holy Roman Empire. And actually, Austria had a lot of power, right? But every monarch was basically married to the Queen of Austria's kids. She had about 10 or 12 or something like that, and they were everywhere. So when she died, Spain took over the Holy Roman Empire, right? And the Netherlands was a proxy state for Spain, which was also a proxy state for France for a while, the Batavian Republic. But first we had an 80-year war against Spain, and we had our independence in 1581. Ja, de akte van verlating. Akte van verlatingen. Zo. De akte van verlating. The act of abjuration. So we decided to be a republic. We decided to set ourselves free from Spain, and it took 80 years. So first we had the beeldenstorm. Ja. We hebben heel veel dingen van de kerk afgehaald en zoiets. Spaanse symbolen. En je gelooft me niet daar. Oké. Beeldenstorm. Beeldenstorm. We hadden heel veel beelden eraf gehaald en zoiets. En zo is ook de protestantse beweging naar voren gekomen. Ja, dus heel erg interessant ons Nederlands geschiedenis. En dan zouden we dieper in moeten graven. Ja. En dit heeft met Nederland te maken, onze geschiedenis. Dat zijn we gewoon vergeten. We forgot our history. We forgot how we became independent from Spain. We just forgot, you know. There are many things in life and many generations and people forget. But RHTVLive is there to let people remember what exactly happened in the Netherlands, in Afghanistan, in any other country. Because this is our job to do. It's a very tough job, you know. But still, we do it to inform people what's going on. And I don't have t-shirts. I don't have any sponsors. You know, I'm doing this for free, right? My YouTube is not set on monetary standards because I don't want money. I don't want money. I just want the truth. Hey, still now. I just want the truth. And I know my history and history of other countries because I'm interested in other countries, other cultures, and, you know, stuff like that. So I look at China, for example, you know, their history, the heavenly mandate, stuff like that, you know, very interesting. Yep. You gelooft me weer niet. You don't believe me, right? You don't believe me that there was a heavenly mandate, right? Okay. Let's use Google because they say Google is our friend. You know, we have nothing to worry, even though they spy on us every time that they can. So, akte van verlating, de Bataafse Republiek. Ja, mensen hier krijgen allerlei informatie. En ja, we doen ons best om mensen te informeren over wat er allemaal gebeurt in de wereld. En wat er ook allemaal gebeurd is ook belangrijk om te weten. Dit gaat om Nederland. Niet alleen om Nederland, het gaat ook om andere landen. Ja? Elke land heeft zijn eigen geschiedenis. En degene met de macht heeft bloed aan handen. Serieus. The one with power has blood on his hands. Or her hands. You know. This is serious stuff I'm talking about. And people need to wake up. Wake up from your slumber. Know your history. Right? I'm teaching Dutch history now in both languages, English and Dutch, just to inform on what's going on. So, let's see what else we got here. So, I don't know. It's a weird world. You know, people say you got to work for your money and this and that. But do you think money is made by trees? Or you can plant money and then you have a money tree? No, of course not. Of course not. Money is made out of thin air, right? Just a number they type in and the press's role. Still, she's a rebellious cat. Hey, still. Yep, she's a rebellious cat. So, anyway, they print money out of nothing. And when did the Federal Reserve get power? Huh? So, learn stuff about economics and stuff like that. We already explained this time and time again, how the economics work. So, we in the Netherlands were the first to have a stock market, right? We had the VOC, Verenigd Oost-Indisch Compagnie. So we have the oldest stock market in the world. We were the first to have a stock market. We were the first to invest in tulips and stuff like that. Tulip mania, right? Tulip mania, right. Tulipmania, tulpenmanie, was a period during the Dutch Golden Age. So, a tulip, the seed of a tulip was more worth than, or worth more than a house, right? Het was meer waard dan een huis. Dan kon je huizen mee kopen met een tulpenbol. Serieus. Maar zoals elke investering gaat om vraag en aanbod. Hè? Als je vraag er niet meer is, hè, ja, dan gaat het kelderen. En dat zie je dus ook bij de tulpenmanie. Dus we gaan even kijken hiernaar. Tulpenmanie was the period during the Dutch Golden Age when contract price for some bulbs of the recently introduced and fashionable tulip reached extraordinary high levels. Major acceleration started in 1634 and then dramatically collapsed in February 1637. Dus er werd hevig geïnvesteerd in de tulpen, omdat er veel vraag naar was. En daarna gingen de prijzen kelderen. Ja. Het heeft niet alleen te maken met vraag en aanbod. Het heeft ook te maken met de geopolitieke dingen die destijds speelden. England ruled the waves during those ages, and the Dutch had a lot of wars with the English. 4 Dutch Anglo wars. But you don't believe me? Dutch Anglo war. Anglo-Dutch, whatever. So 4 wars, right? First war, second war, third and the fourth. And we were good in trading and stuff like that, but we were not good in battles. Even though we tried, we tried. So the East India Company, the VOC, en dat werd dus tegengehouden door Engeland en zoiets. Dus om een perspectief te geven, to give perspective, The Netherlands would go to a country, say Algeria, right? And they trade with the people in the country. Nederland gaat naar een land toe, zegt Algerije, en ja, wij gaan handel doen met die mensen. Ja. England goes to Algeria, plants their flag over there, and then they claim Algeria as England. Just to give an example, right, on how stuff worked back then. So this is how they made their empire. So they basically, the Netherlands had a trade route with India, right, and Malaysia and all that, Indonesia, and as said before, we had a lot of wars, right? Now we had our own route to take when we were trading with India and Indonesia. And this was what the war was about. Not per se the trade relationships Netherlands had with other countries, but the seafaring travels. That what it was about, right? The Dutch did not want that, and the English wanted to take over the trade route. So we basically lost. Even though we did give resistance to England. Ja. Maar ja, goed, dat is allemaal verleden tijd. It's all bygone history. So there's a lot more to talk about. You see, the reason why there's a European Union is because Europe was always in war. Always. Right? First you had the Roman Empire, which brought stability within the continent of Europe. And also, the other empires were competing against the Romans. Very interesting. But basically, people don't care. Don't care about their history. They don't care. Zal ze allemaal boeien. Maar goed, wij gaan door met mensen informeren. Want dat is onze taak. Daar doen we het voor. Fall of civilizations. Very interesting to watch this year, the fall of civilizations. And let's take a look at this one.
In the year 1812, a Swiss explorer and eccentric named Johann Ludwig Burckhardt was travelling in the Middle East, in the region of what is today Jordan. Burckhardt was a strange and colourful character.
Nope.
Born on the shores of Lake Geneva, he had travelled to England to study, and there had been employed by a group known as the African Association, a gathering of upper-class Englishmen who financed expeditions of exploration. They had given Burckhardt the task of crossing the Sahara Desert from Cairo and making contact with what was then considered a lost city, the city of Timbuktu. Burckhardt took his assignment seriously, and he threw himself into it with all the energy of a true Georgian eccentric. He began to study Arabic at Cambridge University, and while there he began dressing in traditional Arab clothing, wearing long white dish dashers and a turban, much to the bemusement of his fellow students. After graduating, he moved to Syria, and spent 2 years there practicing his Arabic, even adopting the name Sheikh Ibrahim ibn Abdullah and attempting to pass himself off as a Muslim. It's not clear how successful Burckhardt's disguise really was, or whether anyone in the Arab world was fooled. In preparation for his great journey, he set out on a number of expeditions into the Syrian desert, but many of these ended in disaster. He was robbed on a number of occasions, often by the same people he had hired to act as security on the journey, but his desire for adventure was unabated by these setbacks. And in 1812, he set out on the journey from Syria to Cairo, with the intention there of securing passage across the great sandy sea of the Sahara. It was on this journey, taking the more dangerous inland route through the baking summer heat of the desert, that Burckhardt would make quite a different discovery. It was here that his guides told him of a series of mysterious ruins hidden in a narrow valley nearby, which was known by locals as Wadi Musa, or the Valley of Moses. At this point, Burckhardt was still in disguise as an Arab, and he contrived an excuse to visit the ruins, as he writes in his diary.
August 22nd, 1812. I was particularly desirous of visiting Moses' Valley, the antiquities of which I had heard the country people speak in terms of great admiration. I hired a guide at LG to conduct me there, and paid him with a pair of old horseshoes. He carried the goat and gave me a skin of water to carry, as he knew that there was no water in the valley below.
As Burckhardt travelled with his guide down into the dry valley, he began to feel increasingly fearful that someone would see through his disguise, and his ruse would be discovered.
In following the rivulet of LG westwards, the valley soon narrows again, and it is here that the antiquities of Wadi Musa begin. Of these I regret I am not able to give a very complete account, but I knew well the character of the people around me. I was without protection, in the midst of a desert where no traveller had ever before been seen, and a close examination of these works of the infidels, as they are called, would have excited suspicion that I was a magician in search of treasures. Future travellers may visit the spot, under the protection of an armed force, and the antiquities of Wadi Musa will then be found to rank amongst the most curious remains of ancient art.
Burckhardt's guides led him towards what, from a distance, appeared to be a sheer cliff of brilliant red sandstone, but as he drew closer, he saw a well-concealed ravine opening up in the stone wall, from which a sparse stream was flowing.
The valley seemed to be entirely closed by high rocks, but upon a nearer approach, I perceived a chasm about 15 or 20 feet in breadth, through which the rivulet flows westward in winter. The precipices on either side of the torrent are about 80 feet in height. In many places, the opening between them at the top is less than at the bottom, and the sky is not visible from below.
As Burckhardt travelled down this shady chasm, his sense of excitement gradually grew to wonder as he came upon the sight of an enormous tomb carved into the very rock of the red sandstone mass around him.
In continuing along the winding passage, an excavated mausoleum came in view, the situation and beauty of which are calculated to make an extraordinary impression upon the traveller. After having traversed for nearly half an hour such a gloomy and almost subterraneous passage as I have described, the natives call this monument Khosra Faroun, or Pharaoh's Castle, and pretend that it was the residence of a prince, but it was rather the sepulchre of a prince, and great must have been the opulence of a city which could dedicate such monuments to the memory of its rulers.
Look at what people can make. Moet je zien wat mensen kunnen maken. Ja? Dat is toch bijzonder? Ik vind het anders van wel. En ook de oude beschavingen, het Assyrische Rijk en Mesopotamië en zulke dingen allemaal. Erg interessant. Maar ja, heel veel mensen vinden het saai en niet interessant genoeg. En ja, waarom zou je daar naar kijken? Nou, we zitten in de eindtijd. We're in the end times, right? And it's going to take a long while before that is realized. Because they're doing everything they can. Ze doen alles wat ze kunnen om de Europese Unie bij elkaar te houden. Eigenlijk barst het uit zijn voegen. En de landen die aanstelling krijgen voor de EU, zoals Albanië en Noord-Macedonië, daarvan wil de populatie niet bij de EU. En ook Oekraïne is dat aangeboden. Nou, we weten het geval in Oekraïne. Nog altijd oorlog daar. Maar ja, er was ook een tijd stabiliteit in deze oorlog. Een wapenstilstand. En Oekraïne heeft toch hun graan kunnen verschepen naar Egypte toe. Dus ja. Why keep on fighting? We need peace. That's what we need. We need peace. Peace. No fighting anymore. Russia, just give back Ukraine. The Crimea, I mean. And, you know, there has to be stability. There has to be a middle road, right? Now I know Zelensky is a puppet of the United States. We explained that before. So it's very, very hard to get to the Ukrainians. And it's a very, very corrupt country. And sad that we as the Netherlands are supporting Ukraine. We are supporting Ukraine with weapons and stuff like that. You know, very, very sad. Even the refugees in the Netherlands, as Ukrainians and stuff, they come to the Netherlands and they get everything for free, basically. And it's very sad, right? We started the wars, as explained before, in Syria and other places. So, het is heel belangrijk om te weten dat Nederland toch een heel groot aandeel heeft in allerlei oorlogen. Dus, ja mensen, en daar moeten wij vanaf. Daar moeten wij vanaf. Weg met die oorlogen. Er is een lobby in Nederland die heel veel geld aan verdient door wapens te verkopen. Heel, heel erg triest dat dit allemaal gebeuren moet. En dit willen wij niet als Nederland. Althans, ik niet. Ik wil dat niet. Ik wil vrede op de planeet. En ik wil niet dat mensen moeten lijden onder een oorlog. Nee. We kunnen gewoon met elkaar discussiëren. Ja, als discussie te moeilijk is, dat is voor vele mensen te moeilijk, ja, dan houdt het ook op. dan houdt het ook op. Ja. Dus, even kijken, ik krijg ondertussen allerlei berichten door. Zo. Ja. Goed. We gaan gewoon door. Oh, kijk, Barry heeft een bericht gestuurd. De chat zit vol trollen. Nou ja, kijk. Die gaan natuurlijk allemaal weer trollen. En zoiets. Dankjewel, Barry, dat je dat zegt. Eens even kijken. Ach, daar heb je allemaal kneusjes. Ja. Die gaan we stuk voor stuk verwijderen. Maar eerst gaan we ze blootgeven natuurlijk. Hè. Leuk om dat te doen. Gaan we eens even kijken welke kneusje we als eerste kunnen blokken. Ja. Dus. Zo. Ze blijft maar bezig bij RHTVLive. Maar wij blijven ook bezig de wereld te informeren. So there are a lot of trolls in this live stream, and we're going to remove all these trolls. Kijk. Oh, wat heb je toch weer? Interessant. Ja. Dag. Doei. Zo, doeg. So that's the first troll we blocked. And we're still going live, right? So let's see which is the next troll. Even drumgeroffel. Welke is de volgende troll die ik ga blokkeren? Ja. Oh ja, Rogier. Wat jij daar zegt. Oh, dat is zo erg. Zo erg wat je daar allemaal zegt. Of niet? Welke is de volgende troll? Even kijken. Chat is nog steeds aan laden, zo te zien. Kijken of we ook in de studio mensen kunnen blokkeren. Zo. Hup. Karel de Wit. Zou wel, doei. Hup. Hier. Dag. Hier. Dag. Ja, mensen. Hier zie je het. Ja. Zo, blok hier van YouTube. En ja. Zo. Hele 2 kijkertjes. Ja, volgens mij zijn het er meer. Maar goed, deze mensen hebben geen leven. Weet je? Die geeft gewoon aan wat er gebeurt in de wereld. We laten zelfs beelden zien van de hotel in Somalië bijvoorbeeld. En wat er in Kenia gebeurt. Maar ja, deze mensen hebben geen leven. Die vinden dat gewoon leuk om te saboteren. Ja, Anglo-Dutch Wars. Nou, wat heb ik nou precies verzonnen dan? Kijk dat. Wat heb ik nou precies verzonnen? Hier, de Eerste Oorlog, Tweede oorlog, derde oorlog, vierde oorlog. En ook latere oorlogen. Ja, kijk. France reduced the Netherlands to a satellite and finally annexed the country in 1810. In 1797, the Dutch fleet was defeated by the British in the Battle of Camperdown. Ja. Dus allemaal geschiedenis. Maar die Rogier, die verzint dat. Die verzint dat. Gaat toch weg. Even kijken. Rogier is geen wappie, hij is een geleerde. Zo. Ja, die hadden we al geblokkeerd. Kijk, heel veel mensen vinden dit misschien saai. Maar ja, we gaan gewoon door. We gaan gewoon door. Even kijken. Dat zeg jij. Oh, dat zegt hij. Oh. Nou, wat heeft hij gezegd? Rogier is geen wappie. Hij is een geleerde. Een autodidact noemen ze dat. Weet je hebt ergens interesse in. En je gaat daar diep in graven. Ja. Heel veel mensen hebben zoiets van, ja, boeien, die Rogier die loopt me wat, boeien. Nee, ik geef informatie. En ja, het boeit niet hoeveel mensen er meekijken. Want mensen kunnen het altijd achteraf zien. En achteraf kijkt men toch wel heel veel. Ja. Dus het gaat niet om de live kijkers. Hè. We weten dat er allerlei trollen zijn. Dat is hun taak om Rogier dwars te bomen. Terwijl je gewoon geschiedenis geeft. Ja. Ga je nou ontkennen dat het allemaal gebeurd is? Of zoiets. Nou, Roel Koekwaard. Die vindt het zo nodig om mij aandacht te geven. Ik vind jou een kneus. Dus gaan we je blokkeren. Zo, hupla. Koekwaard, koekwous bedoel je. Ja. Dus we gaan gewoon door, hè. We gaan gewoon door. We laten die trollen in beeld zien. Zodat men geïnformeerd is over de trolletjes. Ja, die vragen ook weer aandacht. En zoiets. Dus de trolls. We are trolls, we are trolls. Oh, Karel de Wit, uitkeringstrekker. Uitkeringstrekker. Jij bent de uitkeringstrekker, Rogier. Hebben we maar niet over koning. Nee. Dat is een coole gast, hè. Ah. De koning heeft ook een uitkering. Dus Karel de Wit, je bent de kneus. Blokkeren. Hup. Zo. En wie heeft gezegd dat ik een uitkering heb? Het is toch ongelooflijk wat men op je verzint. Ja. We gaan gewoon door, hè. Alle kneusjes blokkeren. Oh, wat is het toch leuk. Oh, wat is het toch leuk. Ja, nou, Roel Koekwous, die hebben we ook geblokkeerd. En zoiets. Oh, jij bent een uitkeringstrekker, Rogier. Jij bent een uitkeringstrekker. Nou ja. Kijk, als je je kop boven de maaiveld steekt. Als jij je leven waagt, je leven op het spel zet. Om je land te verdedigen. Dan noemt men jou een koekwous. Ja. Dus vandaag was ik ook, ik ben naar de brug gaan lopen en dan terug door het centrum met de 2 vlaggen. En dan hoor je ook, ja, je moet die vlag omdraaien, man. Je moet die vlag omdraaien. Oh my god. Kijk, men heeft geen interesse meer. Geen interesse in de ander, in de ander gedachtepatroon en zoiets. Dus ja, we gaan ze maar lastig vallen. Ja. En dat komt ervan als je je uitspreekt in dit land. Heel erg triest. Je geeft dus geschiedenis en actuele feiten en zoiets. Ja, die regeer, dat is een wappie. Dat is een wappie. Die heeft het over klimaat. Dat we die klimaat in handen hebben. Wat een wappie is dat. Ja, ooit wel eens gehoord van cloud seeding. Ja. Nou, we gaan even kijken. Cloud seeding. Cloud seeding. In Dubai. Hier hebben we dus een land waar dat gebeurt. Gaan ze allerlei metalen in de lucht pompen, zodat het gecollectiveerd wordt door de vochtigheid in de lucht. En dan komt er een wolk waar regen uitkomt. Ja. En ja, ik heb het niet verzonnen. Het staat gewoon in de media. Er staat gewoon bij RTL Nieuws, ja, cloud seeding, Dubai onder water door zaalgemaakte regen. Ik heb het over weersmanipulatie. Nee, Rogier, jij bent een wappie. Jij bent een wappie. Ja, waarom heeft RTL Nieuws het dan ook over? Als ik wappie ben. Dus RTL Nieuws nou ook wappie. Omdat RTL Nieuws zegt dat Dubai hun eigen wolken maakt. Ja? Die regie is wappie. Ik heb altijd gezegd, hè, wij als Nederland, wij steunen de terreurgroeperingen, zoals in Syrië, Debat, Al-Samia, mogen we niet vergeten dit. Ja, want we hebben een mooi land opgebouwd, hè, een republiek, en op een gegeven moment wordt het overgenomen door een monarchie, en sinds die tijd zijn we ontwapend en zoiets. Maar we geven wel wapens aan jihadisten in Syrië. We hebben voor 25 miljoen euro hebben we dus 313 auto's in totaal gegeven met voedsel, medicijnen, communicatieapparatuur, tenten, uniformen en trainingen. Ja, daar gaat al de wapens naartoe, hè. En kijk nu in Oekraïne, ook daar zien we dat wapens geëxporteerd worden naar andere landen. En zoiets. Heel erg triest. Ja, dat gebeurt allemaal. Dus we hebben weer veel laten zien, mensen. Aanslag op een Russische politica. We hebben informatie uit Kenia gehaald. Somalië. Oh ja, dit is ook interessant hier zo. Dit is dus iemand, Jay Pelfrey. Die is dus naar Afghanistan toegegaan in 2022. Een jaar lang Taliban aan de macht. En we gaan even kijken waar deze gast belandt.
Just arrived here inside one of the famous bird markets here inside Kabul. This market has been around for over 50 years.
Entering Kabul's bird market is like stepping back in time to a corner of the city untouched by modernization or military action. It is known as the Alley of Straw Sellers and is a narrow lane tucked behind the Pul-e-Kishti mosque, lined with stalls and booths selling birds as well as rabbits.
So this guy willingly goes to Afghanistan. Very, very interesting what people do. So we're going to close off this broadcast. And I thank you all for watching. And we will be back tomorrow. Ja, mensen, morgen zijn we er weer. En dan gaan we weer praten over wat geopolitiek. Dank jullie voor het kijken. Dank jullie voor het delen. En ja, zelfs de trolletjes. Ja, zelfs de trolletjes, die hebben meegekeken. We gaan nog hier eens even lastig vallen. Ja, kakbek, je bent geblokkeerd. Ja, mij val je niet meer lastig. Dus, alle trolletjes blokkeren. Jullie zijn het licht, mensen. Vergeet het niet. You are the light in these dark times. Never forget.